It's Kelvin here from Rent My Tent, and I'm going to hand you over to Rob, who's going to talk you through the smart contracts that he's been working on. So the smart contracts are going to give you a clue to how we've developed a deposit return scheme for tents, so that tents can be sort of sold into the marketplace. The person selling the tent meets someone who wants to hire it, and they then hire the tent for a period of time, and then they become the custodian of that tent until the next renter comes along. So that's my quick overview, and Rob is going to go under the hood for you.
All right, so in terms of the contract, we have basic standard 721. It's mintable and burnable. When we create new tents, they'll be minted, and as tents degrade and get destroyed over time, they'll be burned. They are upgradable contracts, so that we can always maintain and fix bugs. However, there's no control over users' tent or assets via any admin keys. It's strictly just for upgrading contract functionality. There are fees for us to be able to accrue revenues through direct fees, and also in the future through interest-bearing tokens. All right, so all tents when listed in the 721 contract are enumerable. That way we can list all the tents of a single person, which tents are available, and certain details of the tent itself. Most of the tent data is actually stored in the ERC 721 metadata, which is uploaded to the IPFS file system and linked to the token through the token URI. Pretty standard 721 stuff. In the first part a user will want to do when interacting with the contracts is to register themselves as a member. They will pay a small membership fee. Once they become a member of the contract, then they can rent or list as many tents as they want through the list of tent functionality. So this is a simple standard function that they can call to become a member, and it also provides a space for their name, just for differentiation or recognition. There's also a function for registering multiple members at once. This would be useful potentially for event sponsors. Then they will list a tent. You will set your initial listing price, and this URI will be the link to the token metadata on IPFS. Again, no fee for listing a tent once you're a member. You just need to be a member, and you'll be able to list as many tents as you want. This is definitely useful for deposit return scenarios where people might want to list multiple tents at once and over time, multiple times. Right, so once you have a tent listed, it's stored in the contract state, so we can always enumerate through the available tents and whether or not that tent is locked for rental or not. All right, when someone wants to rent a tent, they will find a tent on a marketplace, whether that be a third party like OpenSea or an in-house rental marketplace on the website. They'll interact with the reserve tent functionality, where they'll supply the token ID for the tent that they want to rent. And then the initial transaction will require the person who's reserving the tent to pay a deposit. That deposit will be held in the contract in escrow. The person rents a tent and reserves it. They will pay an initial deposit. The deposit's held in escrow to ensure that that person will take care of the tent while it's in their custody. Once a deposit is made on a tent, the other person will be notified through our systems that they have somebody interested in the tent that they have. They can then meet up with the person or or find a way to exchange that tent. Once the tent has been exchanged, they can confirm the quality and complete the tent transfer through this function here. If the tent's in perfect quality, then the deposit will be returned to the person who was in custody of the tent, and the new person who is renting the tent will pay the tent price, and their deposit will be held in escrow to ensure that they don't wreck the tent, and that it's in great shape for the next person that wants to rent the tent. Now, in order to complete the transfer, only the person who initially reserves the tent can complete the tent transfer. If the tent transfer is not completed within a certain amount of time, then either user has the right to cancel the reservation, and the deposit will be returned, and the tent will be listed available again for someone else to rent. If the tent is completed, the tent transfer is completed. So once a person has reserved a tent, they will interact with the complete tent transfer function. The two parties involved will confirm the tent quality when the tent is transferred. So if it's less than 100%, the deposit that the person put up will be reduced by basically, if the tent is 90%, they're only going to get 90% of their deposit back. If the tent is 50% quality, they're only going to get 50% of their deposit back, and the new price of the tent will be set at 50% of the initial listing price. So once the two parties have confirmed the tent quality and completed the tent transfer, the tent will be locked up for a rental period, which will be set by the person renting the tent. It could be a day, it could be a week. And only after that rental period has expired will the tent be listed again as available for rent. And then the whole process can continue with a new person reserving the tent and placing a deposit, meeting up with the person, confirming the tent quality, completing the tent transfer, and taking custody of the tent. All the while, there's always a deposit for the tent held in escrow to ensure and incentivize that the current custodian of the tent maintains good care over the tent and always tries to bring the tent to the next person in perfect working condition. In terms of contract control, we're able to set the deposit percentage so that the deposit should match the price of the tent. If the deposit percentage is 100%, then the deposit is 100% of the price of the tent. It could be 50%, it could be 150%. It's controllable by the admin. Also, the membership fee is controllable. There's a transfer fee, so every time the tent is transferred or transfers hands, we can add a small fee to the transfer price. So it doesn't come out of the actual price of the tent, it's just additional transfer fee, kind of like a small tax or service fee, additional added on to the transaction when the transaction is completed. We do intend to also, while the tent deposits are in escrow, we do intend to convert those assets into an interest-bearing asset so that we can also generate a small revenue through interest-bearing tokens through the DeFi platform.
Did you want to say anything around the ideas around these interest-bearing assets? Because obviously that could be profit for Rent My Tent, but it could also be profit for the custodian, because the custodian of a tent will have value locked up until the next person comes along and takes the tent, hires the tent from them. So it could work either way.